So when people are stressed out, people tend to find ways to deal with that stress, right? Some people go to the gym, right? That's something I like to do. Some people eat, right? Excessively. Some people drink. But for a lot of people, they're spending, right? And they're spending, racking up credit card debt. Recently, I did a video called about doom spending, where the outlook, where people had this negative outlook on the economy, right? And because of that negative outlook, they said, you know what? They didn't have a lot of hope. So what would they do is they would resort to spending, right? Because spending is something that made them feel good, gave them a good feeling, regardless of what was going on in their lives, finance wise. They find ways to feel better, to cope with that stress just through spending money. And although I understand that is just not a great way to handle your finances, because eventually that catches up to you. But you can understand why people are doing it, that right? They want to have a good. When people don't have hope when it comes to their finances, they find different ways to cope with that stress. And look, we have a credit crisis in this country, right? Like credit card debt is ridiculous. Like it's like what, $1 trillion. We have a student loan crisis that people are struggling with. We have an auto loan crisis. People getting their cars repoed. And like heck, our own country, we have like $34 trillion of debt in this country. So we have a huge credit crisis that's going on in this country, and people are just trying to find ways to deal with it, and you can understand it. So. And I came across this article, and it talks about how half of Americans believe they can pay off their December credit card bill, right? So it's like, even though inflation is the way it is, things are expensive, people are still finding ways or reasons to spend money, even though it doesn't make sense financially. But to them, this is how they deal with it. I may not agree with it, but this is how they feel. And this is something that needs to be fixed. But I mean, people need to get better spending habits, and people need to figure it out, because spending, eventually you get to a point where you're going to get tapped out, right? Just like the U.S. economy. $34 trillion of debt. Eventually, the U.S. is going to get tapped out, and you got to figure out how to deal with it. So, so to look at this article, right, it says only half of Americans believe they can pay off their credit card bill. So it says only half of Americans could. Only half of American credit card customers believe they can pay off their December balance in full, according to an industry index, signaling a low ebb in credit card confidence as the nation emerges from the holidays. The Lending Tree Credit Card Confidence Index, a monthly survey published since 2018 by the personal financial site, dipped to 51% in December, which is an all-time low. So people's confidence are going down, right? They're like, you can see people are spending more, right? And as people lose more confidence in what's going in common, they're spending more money, and they have no confidence that they can even pay off their debt, but yet they continue to spend more. So even though you have no confidence that you can pay off your bill, why you continue to spend more? It gets to a point where people just say, you know what, who cares, right? Like when you have that sense of just no hope, you just like, you know what, nothing makes sense, so I'm just gonna spend because I'm gonna do the things that I want to do, even if it doesn't make sense to you. Right, so it says in a nationally representative survey, over 1,500 cardholders, only 51% voiced confidence that they could pay off their credit card balance this month. In November, the confidence index stood at 58%. So in November, 58% of people said they had confidence they could pay off their November bill. Now in December, only 51% say they can pay off their December bill. So you can see that confidence meter just going down. So it says if credit card confidence is slipping, many other industries metrics are moving in the opposite direction. The national credit card balance stands at $1.8 trillion, which is a record high. People continue to rack up credit card debt, right? Even though they can't pay, people are doing that. And if you don't have a credit card, people are using like buy now, pay later options. So people are just finding ways to spend money to get the things that they want, to get the things that they hope they can make them feel good in the moment, right? And that's always a recipe for disaster. Now, I said the average interest rate has reached 21%, which is the highest point recorded by the Federal Reserve in nearly 3 decades of tracking. Some retail cards are now charging upwards of 30%. And this is at a time where, the feds are, they were raising interest rate. Yet people, as debt becomes more expensive, people are still spending more. And like I said, a lot of people are carrying that balance from month to month. So you're paying, what they say, up to 30% of interest on your credit card. That's crazy. That you just can't sustain that, right? But as long as people are working, people are employed, they'll just pay either the minimum balance or as much as they can. So it'll get to a point where if unemployment starts to increase, where you start seeing people eventually get tapped out, and you'll see a lot of people struggling to make those payments, and obviously collections are gonna be follow through. So it says, all right, so credit cards are the fastest rising category of household debt. So Lending Tree Index joins a chorus of industry warnings about credit card debt. A periodic survey by Bankrate found that 47% of cardholders carried debt from month to month in mid-2023, up from 39% at the end of 2021. The average card customer holds $6,088 in debt, according to a TransUnion report for the third quarter of 2023, up from $5,474 at the same time in 2022. As someone who's had credit card debt, up to $30,000 of credit card debt, I know exactly how that feels, right? It's not a good feeling, right? You continue to use that credit card. Eventually, it gets to a point where you're tapped out and you get sent to collections, destroys your credit your credit score, and then you're spending years just trying to build it back up. Now eventually I've learned my lesson, and I've been able to pay off that debt and then clean up my credit score and develop much better financial habits, right? So for a lot of people, they still struggle with that. So it's not a good thing, right? So it says credit card debt is rising faster than any other major category of household debt, according to a November report from Wells Fargo Economics. I think it all adds up to people carrying more debt for longer periods of time. And unfortunately, I don't see any of this reversing anytime soon, said Tez Rossman, a senior industry analyst of Bankrate. LendingTree began tracking credit card confidence at an opportune moment. Card rates soared in 2022 and 2023 after hovering in the 12 to 15% range through several prior years. The rise mirrored a broad surge of borrowing rates set off by the Fed in the series of historic rate hikes campaign triggered in turn by rampant inflation. So what was happening is obviously as inflation continued to rise, people were still using a credit card, right? So you can see why that credit card debt would increase. People, even though the interest rates are increasing, debt is becoming more expensive. People were spending more and carrying more debt. And if you don't, and now you see these buy now, pay later options where people are like, you know what, if they don't have the credit card or they're being tapped out, they're just gonna go to that buy now, pay later, just racking up more debt. So you continue down this path when it comes to debt. If you're not someone that's getting their finances in order, you're gonna find different ways to carry debt, and eventually it will catch up to you, and you're gonna get to a point where, you know what, you have no other means of option, and eventually then you tap out. So I said before December's drop, the credit card confidence index had last hit bottom in June 2022, the month when the annual inflation rate hit 40-year high. That month, only 53% of cardholders voiced confidence that they could pay off their balances. The credit card index peaked at 74% confidence in October 22. The moment of the rock bottom interest rates and federal stimulus relief, index has gradually declined in every year since, to an average of 66% in 2021, 62% in 2022, and 59% in 2023. So people are struggling. Like it gets to a point where people are just like, you know what, you're racking up so much credit card debt. People are finding ways to, like, people do not like the outlook of where the economy is going. Things are more expensive. They can't buy a home. They can't struggle. They're living paycheck to paycheck. It gets to a point where you lose confidence and you say, you know what, if you don't get your finances in order, you're just going to resort to more spending, and you're going to resort to more bad spending habits. So unless you get that in order, and you make a commitment to say, you know what, I'm going to pay this down. And obviously you got to change your mindset on the outlook of what's going on in the economy, and that's hard for a lot of people, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck, but you have to find some way to get through that. So that's all I got for you guys today. Wonder what your thoughts on this. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. All right, so you guys take care, have a good one. Later.